I am so honored and esteemed to be joined by my guest today, Ivanova. Ivanova, I don't know if you remember meeting me. We were at an autism conference in Eastern Washington several years back, and I will never forget the first time that I met you because that's the first time I ever engaged in like a public speaking conversation. And you were so welcoming, you were so warming, and you were so accepting that it made that event easy for me to participate. And so I really wanted to have this opportunity to talk to you and sort of for folks to get to know you because you're one of my favorite people on the planet. So thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm absolutely honored to be here.
You're awesome. So so for people who may not know you, can you kind of talk about how you ended up here? Because your story is amazing.
Sure, I'd be happy to. My story starts in 1988 in a small country called Latvia. And at the time, it was occupied by the Soviet Union. And I was separated from my birth mother at birth. I lived in an institution for the first 5.5 years of my life. And it was very lonely and isolating. And I was born with my disabilities, and I was actually born with both physical disabilities and intellectual and developmental disabilities. I was born with club feet and strabismus in my eyes, and fetal alcohol spectrum disorders and autism. And I did not know how to speak when I was in the institution. I didn't learn how to speak until I came to the United States when I was 5.5, and now I can't shut up. So that's one thing people will get to know about me is I am very talkative. I was adopted by a loving American family, the Andersons, who I'm very grateful to and I love very much, and they very love me. And they really fought for me to have an equitable education. My mother fought for me to learn how to read. The school didn't think I could learn how to read, and my mother was like, well, if you're not going to teach her, I will. And she sat in the hallway with me and taught me how to read herself. And she used every skill in the book, even sign language. And I'm so grateful to her for that. She fought for me to have academic classes. She really just fought for me to get to live a whole life. Like, they really did not want me to be restricted in my life. And so they did not believe in mental age theory. They expected me to grow up and take on responsibilities and expectations. And it was hard. There was some tough love, and there were times where probably a little pushed a little too hard. But,
Right?
every parent does that. And one thing I'm so grateful for is that they supported me in finding love. I remember when my first mother sat down with me to teach me about the birds and the bees, and I was really grossed out about it. I was very mature, and I didn't want to know about it. And my mom was like, "You gotta know about this. You gotta know about this. You're gonna love it someday. By the way, you're gonna love it someday." And at the time, I didn't believe her, but now
Right?
I'm happily married and I have two beautiful children, so she was 100% right. I do quite enjoy what she taught me, and um, I'm really glad that I, found a loving husband, my husband Ian, and my mother fought for me to get into community college, and I was able to do well because I found professors that were very supportive of my disabilities, and I also discovered really cool technology that allows you to like record your notes as you're writing them. So that was really helpful when I was in college. And I learned all about the disability civil rights movement, and I gained a passion um, for wanting to end the oppression of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And So my mother actually helped me then get into CWU, and I learned all about the disability civil rights movement. I learned all about the eugenics movement and what America actually inspired, and a lot of dark history. And
Yeah.
yeah, and I was like, man, I'm so glad I was born in my time period, because even though it was very hard for me, even in my time period, it would have been even worse if I was born any earlier. So, like, it made me grateful for the time period I was in, even though I was but then I also realized, oh, that's still a long way we need to go, because I got abused in my first workplace. I had people um, trying to restrain me and things and call me horrible names, and I had my parents having to fight for me to get an education, because when my mom was trying to get me into the community college, they didn't want to accept me, and my mom was like, well, you're going to accept it whether you like it or not. And I'm so thankful to my mom and dad, because they just really fought for me. And they really, had really high potential for me. They believed in a very high potential for me, and that's really why I am the way I am. Is I'm very passionate that all people with intellectual disabilities have the right to live a full life, that we have the right to get married, we have the right to have children, we have the right to, be simple as go out and vote or have a beer, like I call it, I actually create a hashtag around this topic, and this concept is called hashtag right to grow up.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, because for a lot of people with intellectual disabilities, they're not being allowed to grow up, not being allowed to
Yeah.
do adult things that they may want to do and explore, and they're being restricted just because of their disabilities. And my parents really fought for me to not have to deal with that. But now that I'm doing this civil rights work, I am seeing my peers who are just like me, but their parents didn't have the resources to fight that system. And so they've been really restricted in their life. They've been put in these services where they're not allowed to have romantic relationships, have children. A lot of people are forced onto birth control when they don't want to be on birth control. I actually had doctors persuade my mother to put me on birth control, even though I wasn't sexually active at all.
Wait.
So,
So let's go back for a second, because
yeah,
I think it's really important to sort of go back to like where we started this conversation for a moment.
sure. So I may have gone too fast.
No, no, you were fine. I just want to make sure that we highlight some important things,
Yeah,
right? For example, when you're talking about how your parents were supportive and then encouraged you, and I think of so many people now who don't have parents that place, or actually have parents that place that limiting language
yeah,
on their children, right? Like, oh, you'll never have a job, or you'll never be in a relationship. And I hear these
that's
words from
heartbreaking.
parents, and it's frustrating, right?
Oh,
Like,
hell, frustrating. Yeah.
so why is it so important for parents to be encouraging and accept their children and just make sure that they fight for every opportunity that they have?
What really is important for the parents is that um, it's like they want for every child they have, whether they have disabilities or not. You want your child to thrive. You want your child to do their best. You want your child to be as free as possible and to have a life of liberty. I think as a parent, that's what I want for my children. I want them to be free. I want them to have liberty. I want them to know God. I want them to show kindness. I want them to be independent, and I want them to be able to find friends and family outside
Yes.
of me. Like, I think that is really important. That it benefits you, parents, when you support your child in growing up, because when you um, allow for that, then your child feels more comfortable around others in the community that support them well after you're gone. And we
Yeah.
all need that. And I hear this all the time in organizations. Oh, we have this silver tsunami of parents that are becoming elderly caregivers to the disabled adult offspring. And I feel that those parents were very misled by our service system. They should have been supported when their children were in their 20s and 30s to move out and to
Yeah.
find those relationships outside of the family home, outside of those parents, so that when the time came, when the parents needed to transition to the, um, you know, el- being elderly and senior care and then, death, that there's a place for their sons and daughters, that they know that they're going to be good. And also it benefits the person, the offspring, because then they're not traumatized by that transition. I've heard so many horrible stories of people with IDD who, were never encouraged to leave their family's home, and then both of their parents die, and it is traumatizing because that's all they know, and they've never were given the support to live outside of that. That makes that transition very traumatizing. And so I very much encourage parents, you need to talk to your teenagers about, what do you want to do when you become an adult? What are your ideas? And how can I help you get you there? When you become an adult, how can I help you leave the nest? And maybe it is a one step at a time. One thing I've started seeing people do is they start, at first they have them, they get like a trailer or an RV that's like right on the property. And so they kind of get a taste of that, okay, I'm more separate from mom and dad. I have to get my own groceries and things like that. So there's baby steps and ways that families can do this for the disabled offspring. You don't just chuck them out of the nest.
Right.
But
That doesn't help anybody.
no. But what we need to do is find a way to support parents when they're younger in that transition, and that's healthy for both the offspring and the parents, because naturally every young adult, we want to do things, we want to explore, and our parents may not be the ones to be able to support us in that. And so the parent job is to let go of that caregiving and try to see about how helping somebody else support that person in exploring their adult life. um,
And I think
I
it's
think
also
that's
important
really important.
and I think it's also important to start with the conversation, right? So
Yeah.
when the conversation starts with a mom telling their child they can versus telling your child that you'll never. Like, I hate when I hear parents say that, oh, my child will never live on their own. Well,
Yeah.
that's because you're putting a limit on your child. And that
Yep.
has nothing to do with your child. That has to do with you as a parent. And I think
Yeah.
that's a huge difference.
Yes. It has 100%. It's all about expectations and believing in your child, believing that there's a future for them, and that they don't. The future isn't institutionalization, because a lot of the cases
Yeah.
when that those preparations were not made, the person just gets put in an institutional setting, and
And
no
that's
one
just the
wants that.
horrible experience for somebody that has just been living at home. I can only imagine, like, you're living at home and then all of a sudden something happens and now you're going from a home life to living in an institution. I
Yeah.
don't know a lot of people who can recover from that.
Yes, it's really scary, and it was really scary during COVID when you had a lot of those facilities shut down, and so they couldn't even have visitors. This is why I do the civil rights work I do. I do a lot of advocacy around those service providers and educating them on, hey, we're human beings and we have rights. And you can't be treating us like children. We are adults. You need to respect our rights as adults and allow us to do adult things while we are needing your support. Because even though we need your support, does not mean we're not adults, does not mean we're not our age. And that's a big thing that these service providers need to understand, and they need to help parents understand that, because sometimes a lot I've heard it from service providers, it's like, oh, we don't want to put these restrictions, it's just the guardian does. And I'm like, who's the guardian? And it's the parent. And it's like, oh, see, like, I tell parents, you got to take these hats off if you want to be, and if you're wanting to stay as the person's caregiver, you got to take the parent hat off, and you got to support them in doing adult things that as a parent you may not want to be around doing your kid doing because you're the parent. But being a caregiver when they're an adult, you got to treat them like an adult. Like, that's the ethics of it. And if you can't do that, then you got to find somebody who can support your adult offspring in doing those things, because we all have the right to explore adulthood and do adult things. And um, it's not right that our service system and our medical system has really pulled parents in a wrong direction. And I really don't blame parents. I blame the medical system. I blame the service system. I blame the government policies, because that's a lot of times what's supporting it. You got
Hmm.
the marriage penalty discouraging parents and supporting their kids and getting married. You got um, you got the CPS taking children away from the disabled parents, and that fear. You got um, transportation issues. You got employment issues with employment discrimination and education discrimination. So I mean, it's not a lot. There's a lot of barriers that parents have to go through for their sons and daughters with disabilities, and a lot of people get misguided along the way. And I think that it's important that we help parents navigate that and help educate them in a way that's gentle and be like, hey, we're wanting the same thing, and I know you want a
Yeah.
break, but instead of just demanding more day programs and segregated respite services, let's talk about helping your son and daughter move out so that
And I
you
think
can
that's a
get back
much
a
better.
natural parent relationship with them instead of the stressful balancing being a caregiver and a parent at the same time and feeling like it's going to be forever when it's not healthy for that to be forever. And it can't be, because someday you're going to die. Let's just be honest here. You're going to die before your disabled offspring, unless there's a car accident, unless there's something that kills them sooner. But a
Right.
lot of times you're going to outlive them. It's way better to be proactive and so get that transition done before you die and before you even get close to having to, because you're going to need care someday, parents. And you can't use your disabled son and daughters for caregiving if you're getting paid to caregive for them. Because I've seen
And
parents do that, and it's not okay. Because then the disabled child gets stuck at home and they can't leave, and it's all based on a paycheck. That's that's a big problem too, and that needs to stop too, and it's not healthy.
and I think I want to acknowledge too to parents that this is not going to be an easy thing.
No.
Letting go of the parent hat and taking that caregiving role is
Yeah.
probably going to be one of the hardest things that you can do, because you've spent your entire life protecting, caring for, providing extra supports. And
Yeah.
we're so worried about the safety of our children that we forget that we're actually doing more harm than good when we
Yeah.
do that to our children.
Yeah. It's like putting them in bubble wrap and not letting them ever go
Yeah,
outside, and it's not healthy.
yeah.
And it
And you
only
talked,
puts, yeah, it puts more
you
stress
you
on the
talked
parent and the person with a disability.
100%. And you talked a little bit about the fear of child welfare involvement. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of people don't understand how much of a legitimate that fear is, especially if like the person who is on that child welfare side has any or no sort of training or awareness of people with disabilities. It could end badly for no fault or no reason and just out of the blue.
Yep, I've actually had to deal with that personally, and it was really scary and really stressful. I'm just so glad that I have a really good support system. But like, I remember being terrified in the hospital that CPS was just going to come into the delivery room. And so I remember when I had my first daughter, Alexandra, I had every family member in that room with me. I had my husband's family, I had my family, I had my friends, I had everyone coming in, checking on that baby, holding that baby. Because and if CPS came in, they would have to be fighting a lot of people to get to that baby.
Yeah.
Like there was no way that they were going to be able to do that with 10 people in the room. And COVID was really scary because I wasn't able to do that during COVID, and I had a little Hildegard, and I had a lot of other medical discrimination I had to face because of the COVID restrictions. So it was really scary, and that stress of medical appointment go wrong, or um, one time, just recently, little Hildegard like snuck out, and that caused a whole big chaos. And it's always on the back of my mind, and it's always a very stressful thing. And I actually know people closely who had their children taken away, and it's heartbreaking and it's not okay. And I really try to fight for those families. And it's like, no, you deserve to be with your child. And it's really sad that we have a system that still does that. Even in Washington State, we still have CPS taking children away from their disabled parents. It's still happening, and it's not
It's
right.
not
It
okay.
needs to change, and it's all they're trying to use IQ. And IQ is actually a very eugenics thing. It was created during the eugenics era, and it was really much about, okay, well, these people we see as inferior, anyone below 100 or below 90 or whatever, and they lower the number, because they
Yeah.
can change the number whenever they want. But like, IQ is something that is it it, it takes away education opportunities. It takes away people's uh, acknowledgement of your skills and knowledge, and uh, very eugenics practice. And I hope someday we don't have IQ no more, nationally.
And isn't it a test that's also based on the white dominant male culture too? So
Yeah,
like it's not even built as an equitable
yeah. It's
representation of intelligence.
it's very much based on Western European, um, that whole imperious mentality of conquer the superior race and all that stuff. And yeah, like Francis Galton, he was the founder, he's the one who coined the term eugenics, and he was actually a cousin of Charles Darwin. A lot of people don't know that, and so he
I
actually
did not know
was,
that.
yeah, he was actually inspired by his cousin Charles, and he kind of expanded. Eugenics is actually an expansion from the uh, social Darwinism and Darwin's survival of the fittest. That's
Yeah.
where a lot of his inspiration comes from, is survival of the fittest literature from Darwin.
And another thing that I don't think a lot of people understand in the terms of the dark history of our country and medicine is that it used to be the case. Like even so, I'm only 10 years behind you. And even around in like the 1970s, 1980s, they were still sterilizing people with
Yes,
disabilities without their consent.
that is correct. That was still happening, and there are still cases today of that happening to people with high support needs. I don't know if you learned about the angel treat,
No.
Hello Angel or Ashley treatment. It is, so there was this case at the University of Washington. This is what's crazy. The University of Washington had an ethics panel where they discussed this treatment for this family that really wanted it. And what it did is they had a child with a very severe form of cerebral palsy, or a high, uh, I'm terrible with the functioning labels, but
Yeah,
person with
but I get what you mean.
and um, what the procedure would do is it would make them so that they would not enter puberty, and they would stay a small stature. They would stay real small, and they would not gain the puberty. It would stop. They would like have hormone blockers with it, so that they could not gain breasts, or it was a female, and all of that, have periods or any of that. And so it
I had no
sterilized,
idea.
completely sterilized them, and it was permanent. All it did though, but it would do some weird things with the limbs, and so the arms and the legs would still grow out longer, but not the torso. Yeah, it's very disturbing. I don't. If you want to look it up, it's called the Ashley treatment, and it was done in 2006, and they approved.
Wow.
So it's actually being done around the country now, because this family got it to be allowed, and these ethics panels think it's okay because it makes caregiving easier for the family, and they think, oh well, she's so severely disabled that gaining puberty would just be a hindrance to her quality of life. So that's the new argument. There's also other ways that people are kind of semi-sterilized, and I kind of mentioned it before. It's a lot of people with IDD, especially if they still live with their parents, or if they live in a facility, because there are actually facilities that require this, and that is forced birth control. You have to be on birth control. So there are actually all home care group homes and care homes that you are actually required to be on birth control, to be allowed to get services there. And also there are guardians that can make it so that you can be put on birth control, even if you don't want to be put on birth control. And it's the same with things like abortion as well. I know that's controversial. I am very not for that. But I am going to say, even pro choice people should be against guardians demanding an abortion of a disabled
Yeah.
person. And there are cases of disabled mothers who do not want an abortion. I'm saying it very clearly now. They do
Yeah.
not want to. They don't want the pill. They don't want an abortion. They don't want to go to Planned Parenthood, but they're being forced by their guardian. That can happen. And actually, that Supreme Court Judge Kavanaugh, who everybody's trying to say is pro-life. You know what's crazy about him?
What's
He
that?
supported that. He
Yeah.
supported disabled women being forced to have an abortion. He was actually on a court case where that happened, and he was one of the, yes, this should be allowed. So anyone who
Wow.
says, oh, he's pro-life, no, he ain't. He is not pro-life. He supports abortion on eugenic principles.
I had no idea. And
Yeah.
the other part too that just makes me just go like angry is that we're not just talking about the ability for women to become pregnant or not. We're talking about providing medication that changes the hormonal development of a person.
Yes.
So using birth control is not simply just about pregnancy. There are so many other things about using
Yep.
that medication over time. And when you take away a person's choice to do what medicine they want to put in their own bodies,
Yeah.
that's just wrong.
It is very wrong, and it's something that I try to advocate against, because a lot of times I get invited to these reproductive rights work groups and things, and a lot of them don't realize. that a lot of IDD people want to have children.
Yeah.
And they think, oh, we need to advocate for your birth control access. And I'm looking at them like, we already have that.
Yeah, right?
It's very easy for us to get, trust me. If you're IDD and you ask to be on birth control, oh, that's easy. Your doctor will give you anything you need for that. Like,
Yeah.
that is not a problem for us. What we need is advocacy against when our guardians are trying to force abortions on us, are trying to force birth control on us when we don't want it. Because
Yeah.
that is what's really happening. And so I've actually tried to educate on that. That like, this is actually what's really happening to intellectually disabled people and autistic people that, are in the service systems. They can't get access to it. It's very easy. They can. It's very easy for them to get access. It's when you don't want that. That is
Yeah.
hard.
That's wild. And for the record, I want
All the
everybody to
plenty of
know.
condoms.
Yeah.
All the plenty of condoms.
Yeah. I do want to take a moment too and acknowledge that just because somebody has a disability does not mean they can't parent. I would argue that every person has the ability to be an amazing parent.
Yes.
And just the idea that if you're a little different, you can't raise a child is so disturbing to me. I don't understand it.
Yeah.
Because, like, what has been the pushback for you? Like, have you seen a lot of people who make comments about you being a parent because of your disability?
Um. Yeah. So like, I've lost friendships because of I became a parent. So I had a very close friendship with somebody. We were like friends for 20 years, and I started having kids, and I didn't realize it at the time, but they really looked down on. They really just saw me as the disabled friend, the all-word friend.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize it for the longest time until I had kids. And they were mad that I was a disabled parent. And so they kept ragging on my parenting and saying how horrible of a parent I was and how I sucked at being a parent. And they would jokingly say this in front of me. And it was like kind of hurtful, but they were like my best friend at the time. And so
Yeah.
I kind of just played along. But looking back on it, it was really hurtful. And it was really sad that like they just couldn't see me as a good parent, and that they couldn't like see me, and they weren't comfortable with seeing me in that role because they weren't a parent themselves, and they always saw me as the R-word friend. And so they're like thinking, what, my R-word friend's a parent? Well, they suck, I guess, like it just felt like that. And so
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
it is, but looking, but that's so that's like a personal one for me. And other times it's when people just don't acknowledge I am the parent. So like people just think that I'm the uncle or the aunt or the other older
Yeah.
brother, older sibling. Like now, like I get that on the bus a lot.
Well, people will automatically spout off with you just automatically talk as if you're sisters,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
not
Oh,
sisters,
these
but
your
aunts and
sisters? Are these your nieces? And I'm like, no, those are my daughters. They don't believe me. Oh, this is little Hildy. You want to go talk to Daddy? Go talk to Daddy, because I'm in a meeting right now. Oh no, you want to sit by? You want to sit with Mutti and say hi? This is little Hildegard. She's my
Hi,
young.
Hildegard. That's awesome.
There's Alexandra coming. Saw a little bit of her earlier. Yeah, that's Alexandra.
Hi, Alexandra. I love the mask. That's awesome.
Yes, this one restaurant we go to gives masks to the kids.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And also another restaurant
Yeah.
that has chicken in it.
Yeah.
Ah, chicken.
Um, Peter, I like
McDonald's,
it.
Yeah.
They don't know.
Okay, you gonna go play?
So one of the things I do want to acknowledge too is how important acceptance is.
Yeah.
And why you're fighting for acceptance. Because I see all the talks you give. I see that you were in Washington, D.C. recently, and you're always advocating for change. What drives you to be the advocate that you are? Because it's rare for those of us with disabilities to stand up and actually start talking. Was there something or some reason that you decided to have the advocate role?
I think it really started when I had to deal with this really abusive job situation, and I was just learning about my disability identity, and I was just like, I want this to end. I don't think this is right that this is happening to disabled people. And when I got to Central and I learned about all the history, and I literally actually read one of the eugenics textbooks in the library, and it's like, this book was made here in this library 50, 60 years ago, and I'm sitting here reading it, and if it wasn't for the disability civil rights movement, I wouldn't be sitting here reading this as a disabled student. And that made me like, I want to become a civil rights activist. I think that's my calling, and I realized that's, I think, what God called me to do was become a civil rights activist. And so I started just getting connected with every organization I could. People First, the ARCs, Special Olympics, Best Buddies, SAIL, any organization that dealt with people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, I just started getting connected with. I started volunteering. I became an intern at the King County, and I just would give speeches and trainings for free. And then people started to be like, no, we want to start paying you for that. You're doing a really good job, and your message is amazing. And so that's really why I got started as an intern at the King County, and the Lend saw me, and they were like, "Well, we do need to start the self advocate discipline, and this person seemed like a good fit." So I became the first self advocate trainee for the University of Washington Leadership Education Neurodevelopmental Disabilities, and now I'm the faculty, and the self advocate discipline, I've been able to run it for 10 years. This upcoming fall will be 10 years that I started the
Congratulations.
discipline. Yeah, and I'm really excited. Well, I'm going to have a party in fall with my cohort and
Yes.
celebrate because, it's been 10 years that I've been doing that. And I do a lot of legislative advocacy. I've met with many great legislators and the governor, and been able to pass legislation. Nothing about us without us. And I'm just really passionate about um, we all have rights. We're all people. We have rights, and um, we want to be in leadership. Like, we want to be in
Yeah.
leadership. We want to be the ones deciding these policies, not you bureaucrats. I see so many bureaucrats that are making like six figures, and all they do is push paperwork, and I'm like, you
And
know,
they're the same kind of people that recommend the jobs for people with disabilities be pushing grocery carts. Same
yeah,
people.
yeah. When we want to be doctors, we want to be teachers,
Yeah.
we want to be mentors, we want to be artists, we want to be musicians.
And we can be.
We can.
Yeah. And that's I want to get to that the nothing without us
Yeah.
Nothing about us without us, because that was such a huge thing. And it's so important to make sure that if you're going to be talking about somebody or a group of people, somebody from that group needs to be at the table at
Yeah.
the bare minimum. Why is it so important for the people with disabilities to be at the table when talking about policies about people with disabilities?
Hope when that's not done, we get hurt. That's been done for the last century, and it brought in a lot of oppressive, restrictive policy that we don't want and that harm disabled people. And so when you invite people with disabilities to the table, you make better policy. You make policy that doesn't hurt us, because then we can tell you, okay, that was a bad idea. Let's go back to the drawing board. Um, because when you don't do that and you leave us out, you end up giving us something terrible that doesn't work. And it only works if you work with the people that have to use it and you, include the people who have to use the policy.
And it's a lot harder to change after it's started.
Yes.
So if you have us as a
And
part of the
horrible
conversation before,
policies. Exactly.
yeah,
Like these horrible policies that were put in decades ago, like sub minimum wage. Like FDR made that. And it was a horrible policy, and he did not consult intellectually disabled people. He only consulted himself, and he's only one person. He should have
yeah,
consulted disabled people, and they would have told you, yeah, we don't want to be segregated. We want a full paycheck. We want to be protected under this minimum wage law, too.
and for
So,
people who
and
are
then
listening,
there are still states that have some minimum wage. So we're still trying to break down these policies. Institutions. We wouldn't have had institutions if you include people with disabilities in
right?
institutions. We're still trying to close those institutions. It is really hard to change a policy after you did it. Let's
Yeah,
not do this bad policy anymore. Include us so we can finally have good policy that we don't have to try to change a couple decades later.
and for those of you listening, what Ivanova is talking about when she says sub minimum wage, there are states in this wonderful, great country of ours in the year 2024 that pay less than, sometimes even up to half of minimum wage if you have a disability. So
Yep.
you're basically paying people half of what you would pay other people just because they have a disability. Oh, that one stinks.
It really stinks. And then there's situations where people are in these segregated, sheltered workshops where they are abused and treated, not treated right, just, emotional abuse, like being called a kid all day and being treated with condescension all day. And there are day programs that are like that too, that people are just not being treated right. Adults are not being treated like adults. And it's really sad when you see like a young caregiver talking down to an old man that has white hair and has been on this planet way longer than that young caregiver. I would never seen that when I was just hanging out with my Special Olympics team at a church, and this young caregiver was lecturing this old man about having a second cookie. And I'm just like, that old man has every right to have that second cookie. You can't be restricting him like that. You respect your elders. And I literally lectured the guy. I was like, how dare you disrespect your elders like that? No. Go have another cookie, man. I'll go get you a cookie if, like, I'll go
Yes.
get you a cookie. I'm not going to let you be treated that way. You're an elder. Like you don't treat your elders like that. This young whippersnapper, like that made me mad.
Yeah. And I have a friend who had a stroke.
Yeah,
And this friend, uh, ever since then, gets treated as if he's like a 2-year-old child. Even though before the stroke, like he was like the president of a company, like he was like, so it's like, it's strange that
yeah,
people. infantile. I hate that word, but like for me, the minute they found out I'm autistic, they treat me as if I'm a child
Yeah.
just because you have a disability, and that
Yep.
does nobody any good.
It's very harmful. I do a lot of education on this issue of mental age theory. Mental age theory is a concept that is so dangerous, and it's where a lot of the oppression and restrictions against people with intellectual and developmental disabilities come from. It comes from that idea. Oh no, we can't let you vote. You don't have the mind for that. You can't consent. You can't drink that. You can't smoke that. You can't have dignity at risk.
Yeah,
If you didn't have a disability, sex twice of pulling out a cigarette. But if you have a disability, everybody's shocked. Everybody's like, whoa. Either they act like, oh my God, you're so cool. And I'm just like, okay, so what about that guy down there that just lit up? Is he cool too?
right.
Like, it shouldn't be seen as something special when a disabled person wants to do something that's adult oriented. That shouldn't be considered a shock. Like,
Yeah, like if you see somebody with a disability at a bar having a drink, let them have a drink. Don't
yeah,
go up to them and give them a problem. Like they
yeah.
have every right to be there, just like you and I or everyone
It's just
else.
that if you're gonna, come up to me and make me feel awkward, you better be buying my next drink.
Damn right. And then I also wanted to acknowledge your recent activities at the Special Olympics because you had an amazing time, from what I could tell. Uh, you won some medals, right?
I did. So I this year at state, I won silver in my 100-meter dash, and I won bronze in my running long jump.
What was your total for the running long jump?
Oh, so my jump was a 1.9.
I love it. That's awesome. How
Yeah,
long have you been doing
my
that?
highest jump has been 2 meters,
Okay.
2.5 meters. So that it wasn't my highest jump. I wish I had gotten my record, but
How long have you been doing that?
I've been doing Special Olympics since 2012.
What is the most fulfilling part of the Special Olympics? Because I know a lot of
Just
people.
connecting with my peers and competing with my peers. So like, my parents, I love them and I'm so grateful to them. The one area that I feel that they pushed too hard and they should not have done is they really kept me away from the IDD community. They did not want me associating with my own community. And that was really hard. And after I moved out, I completely rebelled and I joined Special Olympics. I joined the ARC. I just didn't care. Because I was like, no, this is my community. You guys don't want to accept it. This is my community because you think that if I accept that, then I will be put in services and I won't get married and I won't have. They had a lot of fear. We're losing connection.
That's all right.
They
We
had.
got you back.
Okay, good. They had a lot of fear that um, I wouldn't succeed if I accepted my disability. And over time, I had to show them that I can get married, I can get you your grandkids with my disability. You didn't have to hide my disability. And honestly, Mom and Dad, you guys failed at that because the school knew I was disabled. Society knew I was disabled. You just fought for me as a disabled person. You just didn't realize it because none of the school was believing you when you kept trying to tell them I wasn't disabled. They
Right?
didn't. They knew. They had the documents, and I had the look. Like I didn't have. I'm not my disability is very visible because of my rocking and I guess the way I hold myself. People say to me, "Oh, we can spot your autism a mile away." And that's okay. I'm totally fine with it now. And I think I've gotten my parents to feel more okay with it now too, that I've showed them that, hey, I can still be successful with this. I just need the right support, and I just need you to have my back, and I do have my back. My mom is now supportive. They're not mad about me being in Special Olympics anymore. My mom actually drove me to one of my things that I need to get to. Opening ceremonies. My mom
Oh, that's
got
awesome.
ceremonies, so that was really cool. And um, so it really was just I had to change the hearts a little bit just to show that, hey, I can do this. You don't need to deny my disability. You don't need to deny that part of my identity. It's there, and I can't get rid of it. I tried when I was a teenager. I tried to hide it. I had that internalized ableism, but it was not until I accepted my disability that I started wanting to fight for college, wanting to fight for all the things that you advocated for. It was when I accepted it, and then I said, wait, even as a disabled person, I have the right to those things.
Right.
Now everyone in my community should have the right to those things, so that no parent even has to have that fear. That all parents are encouraged to fight for their children, and they'll be okay with disability and embracing disability. That you can fight for those high expectations, but also still embrace the disability.
Oh, Ivanova, it's been an hour.
It's been a fun hour.
Oh, I've enjoyed this so much. I would love to talk to you again if at all possible.
Yes, I would be happy to.
This has been amazing, such an eye-opening experience. I thank you for your time and keep up the good work. The amount of work that you have done since you have been an advocate cannot be understated. The amount of things that you have been able to accomplish to help those of us with disabilities has been nothing short of awesome. And I can't thank you enough for everything that you've done up until this point. And I can't wait to see what's coming next. And congratulations on 10 years. That's amazing.
Thank you so much.
Is there anything else you want to say before we close down for today?
All I want to say is, if you're a young disabled person, don't give up on your dreams. There's always a route to your goals. It may not look like the same route a non-disabled person uses, and that's okay. Embrace that. Embrace that unique route. And, try to use it to your advantage. And don't listen to those people that say don't use a disability as a crutch. Crutches are useful. They are a helpful mobility device, and you should embrace that crutch. And it will help you get to where you want to go. And so that's, and I want to tell parents, embrace dignity of risk. Let us try things and fail. Let us make mistakes. Support us in growing up. Support us in leaving that nest in a way that's supportive and good. And don't give up on us.
And nothing about us without us. Ivanova, it's been a pleasure.